Jai. Before we start, I want to congratulate everyone. I just looked it up. We began studying the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in October 2021. And this week, we'll finish it tomorrow when I post the lesson. That's the final lesson in Canto 3. Wow. So congratulations to everybody as we systematically and steadily progress through this literary incarnation of God. Premananda Das cannot read, but we'll hear. All right, Haribol. Actually, that reminds me, our program will be to finish the third canto, but Premananda has very kindly helped produce charts from the first chapter. There are 33 chapters in Canto 3. And we've studied all 33 chapters, and he's gone into each chapter and kind of broken it down the way we do in our lessons, but he's put it in a chart format, and practically each chapter is in a chart. So we'll be studying those systematically also. If you remember, in the beginning of the third canto, Vidura met Uddhava. So the first 4 chapters will also be this week. We'll study on Sunday. We'll post the end of the third canto. And on Wednesday, we'll start our review of the third canto and go throughout most of June. But for now, a little bit of a review of what we've studied so far. I put a slide up, so I want to go into that, and we'll read from that to get everybody back in the mind space of what we're studying. This is not May. Yeah, this is May. This is lessons 6 and 7. But as a review, this is Lord Kapila Dev pretty much concluding his instructions to his mother as far as who is eligible and proper to receive this information and who is not. From Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, 32nd chapter, verses 39 through 43. Lord Kapila Dev continued. This instruction is not meant for the envious, for the agnostics, or for persons who are unclean in their behavior, nor is it for hypocrites or for persons who are proud of material possessions. It is not to be instructed to persons who are too greedy and too attached to family life, nor for persons who are non-devotees and who are envious of the devotees and the personality of Godhead. That's who it's not meant for. Instruction should be given to the faithful devotee who is respectful to the spiritual master, non-envious, friendly to all kinds of living entities, and eager to render service with faith and sincerity. This instruction should be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who have taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be more dear than anything, who are not envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, and who have developed detachment for that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. Anyone who meditates upon me with faith and affection, who hears and chants about me, surely goes back home, back to Godhead. So Samapriya, you want to take over and pick some?
Okay, before you change the slide, hello, my darlings. It's so nice to see you all. We went to the beach and we had a beautiful retreat with hearing and chanting, but I did miss your association. Could you put it back to that one slide previous, Patiya? Just this one verse is so, this instruction should not be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who have taken, this is instruction, should be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who have taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be more dear than anything, who are not envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, who have developed detachment for that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness. If we can get that, then we're On our way. On our way. Okay, thank you. All right, so now we can go back. And Sham Govinda was here, but he's not. But so, Mamatar, are you with us? I think she saw her.
Hola.
Hola, my darling. Hare Krishna. Would you like to begin?
Certainly. Chapter 33, Activities of Kapila. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 33, Text 1. Sri Maitreya said, thus Devahuti, the mother of Lord Kapila and wife of Karda Muni, became freed from all ignorance concerning devotional service and transcendental knowledge. She offered her obeisances unto the Lord, the author of the basic principles of the Sankhya system of philosophy, which is the background of liberation. And she satisfied him with the following verses of prayer. Srila Prabhupada's purport. The system of philosophy enunciated by Lord Kapila before his mother is the background for situation on the spiritual platform. The specific significance of this system of philosophy is stated herein as Siddhi Bhumin. It is the background of salvation. People who are suffering in this material world because they are conditioned by the material energy can easily get freedom from the clutches of matter by undergoing the Sankhya philosophy enunciated by Lord Kapila. By this system of philosophy, one can immediately become free, even though one is situated in this material world. This stage is called Jivan Mukti. This means that one is liberated even though one stays with his material body. That happened for Devahuti, the mother of Lord Kapila, and she therefore satisfied the Lord by offering her prayers. Anyone who understands the basic principle of Sankhya philosophy is elevated in devotional service and becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated even within this material world.
Okay. So my husband and I had a discussion of what is Sankhya philosophy? What is Sankhya philosophy? If we were to say in one or two sentences, can you respond to that?
Bhakti Yoga?
Basically, Bhakti Yoga. More specifically, another point is, Pati, you want to describe that?
Sorry, I was doing something with the mutes.
Okay.
What do you want me to explain?
Sankhya philosophy. Because
I see.
I also forgot specifically what is the basic principles of Sankhya philosophy.
Actually, it's being stated here that one who knows the Siddhi Bhumin, the background of salvation, what is the basic principle or the background and foundation that's so important to understand is the difference between material energy and spirit. What's in the third verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it states, the highest truth is, does anybody know it? What is the highest truth?
Okay.
The highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the benefit of all. Such truth uproots the threefold miseries of material existence. So just understand that the highest truth, the most beneficial information one can get in this universe, in this whole cosmic creation, is to understand the difference between, distinguish what is reality and what is illusion for the benefit of all. And understanding such truth uproots the threefold miseries. Why? Because one understands that they're temporary, that they're not worth all the endeavor and attention that we give them. Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Matra sparsas takanteya shitoshna sukha dukkha da. Sukha and dukkha, happiness and distress come and go. So one needs to tolerate them. Tams tatiksha svabharata. And if one understands, I'm an eternal spirit soul, then what happens is that one applies that understanding to all the different events that happened in life, and gradually that process of constant practice, then it becomes normal. Then it becomes strengthened. Then one gets a taste for actually understanding the spirit. So it actually transfers one's entire attention away from this material world into the spiritual world. So in this way, that's why that's why Srila Prabhupada's explaining, and Lord Kapila is explaining, actually Maitreya in this particular circumstance, that Lord Kapila's teachings, which he is the first of the avatars, if you remember, the first of the avatars to impart knowledge, and therefore this knowledge is there as a background throughout all the other information that comes subsequently. The first thing is to understand the difference between spirit and matter and apply the different details that bring one to better understand that I'm a spirit soul, eternal spirit soul, servant of Krishna.
Good. Thank you. That's so important. In a nutshell, the difference between spirit and matter, reality and illusion. Thank you. Okay, we're going to go on now to Tisha. Would you like to read the next slide?
Yes, Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:33, verse 2. Devahuti said, Brahma is said to be unborn because he takes birth from the lotus flower which grows from your abdomen while you lie in the ocean at the bottom of the universe. But even Brahma simply meditated upon you, whose body is the source of unlimited universes. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The nature of the Lord's gigantic body is also explained in this verse. That body is transcendental, untouched by matter. Since the material manifestation has come from his body therefore existed before the material creation. The conclusion is that the transcendental body of Vishnu is not made of material elements. The body of Vishnu is the source of all other living entities, as well as the material nature, which is also supposed to be the energy of that supreme personality of Godhead. Devahuti said, you are the background of the material manifestation and all created energy. Therefore, you're delivering me from the clutches of Maya by explaining the system of Sankhya philosophy is not so astonishing. But your being born from my abdomen is certainly wonderful because although you are the source of all creation, you have so kindly taken birth as my child. That is most wonderful. Your body is the source of all the universe, and still you put your body within the abdomen of a common woman like me. To me, that is most astonishing.
Wow. Okay, so leave this slide for a moment. Tisha, what does that make you think of, or what's your realization about the body of Lord Vishnu not made of material elements? What does actually that mean?
Well, Vishnu created the material elements, so naturally he couldn't be something that he manifested or created. So he's beyond material energy. He's the Lord of the universe. I don't know. He's not material.
He's not material. He's not made of material elements, but that goes with a whole lot of things. If he's not material, then that means he's eternal, right? He's eternal.
Yes, he's eternal.
He's eternal. He doesn't suffer the threefold miseries of anything material, right? I thought that was a far out thing that to meditate on, that the Lord's body is not made of anything material. And that body, the body he assumed, came into the womb of Devahuti. That really is wonderful too. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. This is astounding. This knowledge is really astounding. And we can be thrilled at every moment. We really can. So, okay. How about Sham? Would you like to continue? Thank you, Tisha.
Yes.
I can't hear you. There you go.
Okay. My dear Lord, although personally you have nothing to do, you have distributed your energies in the interactions of the material modes of nature. And for that reason, the creation, maintenance, and dissolution of the cosmic manifestation take place. My dear Lord, you are self-determined and are the Supreme Personality of Godhead for all living entities. For them, you created this material manifestation. And although you are one, your diverse energies can act multifariously. This is inconceivable to us. Purport. Devahuti is saying, although you personally are not doing anything, your determination is absolute. There is no question of your fulfilling your will with the help of anyone else besides yourself. You are, in the end, the Supreme Soul and the Supreme Controller. Therefore, your will cannot be checked by anyone else. When the Supreme Personality of Godhead proposes, that desire is under no one else's control. He is absolute. We are ultimately dependent on him to fulfill our desires, but we cannot say that God's desires are also dependent. That is his inconceivable power. That which may be inconceivable for ordinary living entities is easily done by him, and in spite of his being unlimited, he has subjected himself to being known from the authoritative scriptures like the Vedic literatures. As it is said, Shabda Mulat Bhat. He can be known through the Shabda Brahma or Vedic literature. There is no limit to the demands of the different kinds of living entities, and the Supreme One, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, alone maintains them and supplies them by his inconceivable energy.
Okay. What do you think? What do you have to say about that? The Lord revealing himself in the scriptures.
Oh, yeah. So he's like, I guess he reveals himself in the scriptures, but he's like, so he tries to create parameters so that we can understand, I guess, not parameters, but somehow he links with the human intellect so that we can understand the Lord. Otherwise, in a conditioned state, I mean, how can anyone understand the Lord if he's completely expanding every moment or inconceivable? But somehow or other through the Vedic literature, it's disseminated in such a way that we can use the human facility to understand him, at least in the conditioned state to begin with, and then maybe there's some God realization from the heart through the soul, through spiritual energy after some practice.
Yeah. Understand is an interesting word, isn't it? Because we can never understand everything. There are basic things that we can understand, like he is the supreme, doesn't take orders from anyone, except as pure devotee sometimes, but he's not dependent on anyone, really. And we are his servants, totally dependent upon him. Right? Yeah, that's interesting. Thank you. Anyone else have something to say about that concept that we are the servants? He is the supreme. He doesn't take orders from anyone.
It's also emphasizing that although he remains in one place and does what he wants, his will is still executed everywhere. That's how inconceivable he is. I think it's also wonderful how kind he is. It would actually be mean and ill-spirited to thrust conditioned souls into this material world. There are many philosophers who think that there's no real purpose or sense to the existence, to the cosmic manifestation. It's just here, it's nature's way, and you can live any way you want, but there's no real purpose to the existence. That's completely, 100% destroyed, that theory, by the Lord's avatars. He himself comes, he imparts knowledge, he emanates from Brahma at the beginning of creation. We just read it this last year, year before, how when Brahma was born at the top of the lotus flower and began to create, that from his mouths, the Vedic literatures emanated. The Vedic literatures are eternal. It's spiritual information and knowledge, as well as material knowledge, how to function in this world. And he provides, I think we've all heard the example, just like an instruction booklet, when you buy an appliance or something complex, and there's an owner's manual, The owner's manual tells you how to use that device. All the different details are there. Sometimes it's so complex you might have to refer to it, especially if it's a big, gigantic something. But so in this way, throughout life, the Lord is constantly feeding information through Vedas, through Parampara, through cultures and systems of civilizations to enlighten living entities who are accumulating Sukriti and therefore getting ready to ultimately go back to Godhead, which is the purpose of the whole cosmic manifestation.
Good. Also, there's one important factor that we have to become submissive to this knowledge. To when we say all this information is in the Vedas, there's a system, there's the spiritual master. Unless one is submissive to this transcendental knowledge and the system, then he won't receive it. You know, one day we say, oh, I don't need that information. I can do it on my own. I can do whatever it is on my own, you know, and then the bomb blows everything up, you know. We have to be submissive and find that person who to be submissive to help us understand this Vedic literature and the absolute truth. Prabhupada used to call it submissive oral reception. Submissive oral reception. Really wonderful little phrase.
We can take a minute and go back to this, who it is. Instruction should be given to the faithful devotee who is respectful to the spiritual master, who've taken shelter of the personality of Godhead, just what you were saying, Summer, submissive and surrendered to the Lord, not to these people.
Yeah.
I think that solves.
Go on. Yes.
Go ahead. Sorry,
You.
I think that Jivan Mukti touched on the topic of determination. I think the submissive attitude solves the question of determination, because the Supreme Personality of Godhead is making everything happen, just like Jivan Mukti was saying, but he's aloof from that. He just wants to do what he does. Whereas the person in the material energy, if they want to be a CEO, it takes their entire being to do that position, right?
Right.
But if one dovetails their desires with the Lord's, then they get the Lord's determination through submission, and therefore they can execute beyond what they could have.
Good.
On their own.
Nice.
Right. You tapped into the source of all energy. You know, he's you have a special relationship with the supreme boss. Good. Okay, shall we go on now? Nandaji, would you like to read, Nanda? Give her a second. Nanda? Okay.
No, I'm trying to unmute. There I go. Okay, sorry.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Okay. Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 33, text number 4. As the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you have taken birth from my abdomen. Oh, my Lord, how is that possible for the Supreme One who has in his belly all the cosmic manifestation? The answer is that it is possible. For at the end of the millennium, you lie down on a leaf of a banyan tree, and just like a small baby, you lick the toe of your lotus foot. Fourth, at the time of the dissolution, the Lord sometimes appears as a small baby lying on a leaf of a banyan tree, floating in the devastating water. Therefore, Devahuti suggests your lying down within the abdomen of a common woman like me is not so astonishing. You can lie down on the leaf of a banyan tree and float on the water of devastation as a small baby. Therefore, it is not very wonderful that you can lie down in the abdomen of my body. Since all the great sages and devotees apply all energy and activities in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord, there must be some transcendental pleasure in the toes of his lotus feet. The Lord licks his toe to taste the nectar for which the devotees always aspire. Sometimes the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself wonders how much transcendental pleasure is within himself. And in order to taste his own potency, he sometimes takes the position of tasting himself. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna himself, but he appears as a devotee to taste the sweetness of the transcendental mellow in himself, which is tasted by Srimati Radharani, the greatest of all devotees.
Okay, Nanda, explain this wonderful thing to us.
Well, Srila Rupa Goswami, he has a very nice verse, and he says, I wonder sometimes how much nectar these two syllables, Krishna, have produced. You know, because it's unlimited. Everybody gets a taste of it somehow or other, to some degree or another. So, yeah, it's unlimited nectar from the unlimited Lord, whose body is composed of eternity, knowledge, and ever increasing bliss. But another point too is how Devahuti's mentioning how is it that the Lord could have come in my abdomen? Similarly, in the first canto of the Bhagavatam, when Krishna entered the womb of Uttara to protect the embryo of Maharaj Parikshit, when Asvatthama threw the Brahmastra specifically to destroy him, Krishna entered the embryo and protected Parikshit Maharaj. Srila Prabhupada in the purports in those points, he says, it's not astonishing that the Lord entered her. He entered her abdomen while he was standing outside of her abdomen also. He said it's not astonishing because the Lord was already there anyway. He just became manifest and he's still there. So, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, that's also far out, that he's manifest everywhere. And what feature is that?
The manifest everywhere feature?
Yes.
Well, he's everywhere in the super soul, in the heart of every living entity. Right. He's manifested in every atom. He's manifested in the universal form. He's everywhere. Because you know why? Because it's all his creation. It's not our creation that we didn't allow him to come into. No way. It's his creation that he allowed us to come into.
It's amazing. It's amazing that actually we have a relationship. We have a relationship with this very far out divine personality who's in charge of everything. That is like
amazing.
That's a mind blower right there.
And not only that, but he loves us even in spite of our giving him attention or proper respect, or what to speak of, our loving reciprocation back. Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. Amazing. Krishna's so kind. And so is his devotees. Okay. Madhurya Leela, would you like to read? Thank you, Nandaji. Madhurya?
Haribol, sure.
Haribol.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:33-6. To say nothing of the spiritual advancement of persons who see the Supreme Person face to face, even a person born in a family of dog eaters immediately becomes eligible to perform Vedic sacrifices if he once utters the holy name of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, or chants about him, hears about his pastimes, offers him obeisances, or even remembers him. Srila Prabhupada's purport. A person born in a family of the low caste, which is accustomed to eat dogs, is so positioned due to his past sinful activities. But by chanting or hearing once in pureness or in an offenseless manner, he is immediately relieved of the sinful reaction. Not only is he relieved of the sinful reaction, but he immediately achieves the result of all purificatory processes. He is taking birth in the family of a Brahmana is certainly due to pious activities in one's past life, but still a child who is born in a family of Brahmana depends for his further reformation upon initiation into acceptance of a sacred thread and many other reformatory processes. But a person who chants the holy names of the Lord, even if born in a family of chandalas, dog eaters, does not need reformation. Simply by chanting Hare Krishna, he immediately becomes purified and becomes as good as the most learned Brahmana. If simply by chanting the holy name of the Lord one becomes sanctified instantly, then what can be said of those persons who see the Supreme Lord face to face and who understand the descent of the Lord as Devahutis understands Kapila Dev?
Okay, so it's amazing. By engaging in devotional service, one immediately becomes qualified to engage in devotional service. It seems that's what's being said here. By engaging in service, by chanting, one becomes purified enough to perform Vedic rites or to engage in further devotional service. Can you say something about that, Madhuryaji? Have you found that?
Yeah, it's like a rolling ball, that God gathers mass. So the more it rolls, the more it gathers, and the more you becomes more qualified to perform devotional service. I was also thinking about what Prabhupada said in that purport about just once chanting. It said, and I can't remember now, in the last few days, I was either listening to a lecture or something. He talked about Krishna book, that if anybody who reads Krishna book will go back to Godhead or something like that. And then this, so the devotee said, so then he said, well, even a chapter. And then he said, even a few paragraphs or a line. And then he came down and said, only a word. if they read
Was it
Krishna book.
I remember we used to, when we did Sankirtan in the early days, and Prabhupada was talking about how just if he reads one word, his life is perfect. Not that he goes, the opportunity to go back to Godhead, the opportunity to engage in devotional service, just like if you give out a piece of candy to someone, that person's devotional life has started. You give prasadam. That means Krishna will follow up on that. You have to have faith to engage in this process. It seems so small and insignificant, but even if somebody is nice to a devotee and accept something graciously, that is so beneficial for that soul. Thank you. That's really enlivening, and also that this is the natural reaction to chanting. The natural reaction to chanting is to engage in more service to Krishna.
On another level, although she's in Satya Yuga and Lord Chaitanya hadn't come and offered the holy name, still she's understanding that the process of glorifying the Lord, chanting his holy name, is so powerful that it actually purifies one to the point where they're able to perform Vedic sacrifices. In Vedic civilization, especially Brahminical people, they don't believe this. They think that if you're born in a Brahmin family, that in itself, as it was mentioned in the purport, means that you've performed past pious activities in your previous lives, and you now have been given a body which is suitable to perform Vedic rites. Of course, you have to go through the different Reformation programs that Brahmins undergo. But according to them, when a person takes birth in a family of dog eaters, that's due to their past sinful activities. So they have a nature which is sinful, which is low caste, outcast, not good. And that's also true. That can't be denied. But the point is that the power of the holy name, the power of Krishna, this is also, we studied it when we studied Sri Upanishad. Chanting the holy name of the Lord is associating directly with Krishna. It's non-different than him. So the power of the Lord can certainly cleanse anything. The example is given just like the sun can shine on a urinal or a stool in the field, and it's not affected. The sun's never affected by that, but it dries it up, it purifies it, and finally it dissipates, and it is no more. So in the same way, no matter how low we feel, this chanting of the holy name is associating with Krishna, and therefore can purify one to that position.
Okay, and here we go to a great verse.
Yes.
Supporting everything that we're talking about in the holy name. And Arundhati, would you like to read this wonderful verse and make us all happy? Arundhati, you there, sweetie?
Krishna, absolutely.
Hari Bol, you get the verse. You are the chosen one.
I know.
Hare Krishna.
Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam 3:33-7. Oh, how glorious are they whose tongues are chanting your holy name. Even if born in the families of dog eaters, such persons are worshipable. Persons who chant the holy name of your lordship must have executed all kinds of austerities and fire sacrifices and achieved all the good manners of the Aryans. To be chanting the holy name of your lordship, they must have bathed at holy places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas, and fulfilled everything required. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. One should not disbelieve or think, how by chanting the holy name of the Lord can one become a holy man, to be compared to the most elevated Brahmana? To eradicate such doubts in the minds of unbelievers, this verse affirms that the stage of chanting the holy name of the Lord is not sudden, but that the chanters have already performed all kinds of Vedic rituals and sacrifices. It is not very astounding, for no one in this life can chant the holy name of the Lord unless he has passed all lower stages, such as performing the Vedic ritualistic sacrifices, studying the Vedas, and practicing good behavior like that of the Aryans. All this must first have been done. Just as a student in a law class is to be understood to have already graduated from general education, anyone who's engaged in the chanting of the holy name of the Lord, Hare Krishna,
Krishna.
Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, must have already passed all lower stages.
Oh, how wonderful. Okay. Oh, we're going on, Pati? Would you want to?
As you like, Sam. It kind of changes modes, so we can discuss this
Okay,
first.
let's just, this is such a nice thing. So please explain to me this very important point that Prabhupada's making, as it's not sudden. It's not sudden that one comes to the point, this evolved state of chanting the holy name.
It's actually so scary. It's so humbling to think that I may have done something good in my past life to be able to chant the holy name. It's really a very humbling thought.
Yeah, also, that we come in contact with a pure devotee.
Yeah.
And of course, Lord Chaitanya, his mission is to save the most fallen. So there's ways that we can restore our humility when we actually realize that. Of course, Prabhupada said, one devotee said to Prabhupada, I'm the most fallen. So Prabhupada said to him, you're not the most of anything. We're not even the most fallen.
Yeah.
You can't even say, I'm the... So, but still, because of Lord Chaitanya's kindness and mercy, he came to save those souls who stuck in iron would not turn to look at the Lord. So, this is so what else do you have to tell me about this wonderful, encouraging?
On one hand, we get the feeling, oh, I must have done some good deed in my past that I'm chanting. But in reality, it's someone else's causeless mercy. Some devotee somewhere must have given us a drop of prasadam or distributed a book, or like a dog or a worm. We must have been on the street when, people were passing by and singing the kirtan. So again, it's some causeless mercy of some devotee that we've managed to climb through different species of life and come to this place where we can chant.
To give us the eligibility to leave the material world.
Yeah.
Madhurya, thank you, Arundhati. Madhurya,
I just want to say it's about the other point that it is quite obvious in most cases if you've had done various levels of devotional service in the past, because you see that there are people who come to Krishna consciousness and they advance very quickly, and whereas others it takes a lot longer. And then there's also devotees in our movement who were born into very pious families, and at a young age, I don't know his name, but I'm thinking of the lady who raised her sons, and they become big scholars, and at a very young age.
Radhika Raman Prabhu.
Yeah. So there, or even the devotee that gave class, Hari Prasad. So you can see that there obviously there's something behind them, and that's very amazing.
It's very amazing. So another word is gratefulness. We can just be grateful that somehow or another we've come in contact. Always take that humble position of gratefulness. Okay?
Just one other point to it. After understanding and appreciating all those others, there's different ways to look at everything. One way to look at this is that if I've performed these different activities in my past and have engaged in some devotional service, then how careful I should be, how enthusiastic I should be to not fall down again and have to do it again next life. I don't want to do that. I want to finish it up this life and not make those mistakes that I made in the last life that brought me back here again. And according to these verses, that's very possible, that it is possible to completely cleanse.
Really. Yeah, it's encouraging, and it's also, we have to be very cautious that we're learning somehow or another. We've evolved to hear this highest transcendental knowledge. I don't think any of us can actually conceive of that. But okay, here we are. Let's ruin the opportunity. Believe Krishna, go for it. That wonderful verse that we read in the beginning about, what was that? I guess it's hard to go back to that page now. Patti, could you?
One who takes the Supreme Personality of Godhead as everything.
Is everything.
I believe that's the one you're talking about.
Yeah, and everything that doesn't have anything to do with Krishna is finished. It doesn't enter your purview of consciousness.
This one, you can read it.
Okay, who just read
Arundhati.
this? Arundhati, you want to read this instruction?
SB 332, 39 to 43.
This
From the beginning.
Just read this one.
This instruction should be imparted by the spiritual master to persons who have taken the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be more dear than anything, who are not envious of anyone, who are perfectly cleansed, and who have developed detachment for that which is outside the purview of Krishna consciousness.
Boy, how much strength do we get to actually practice that and to actually realize it? No interest in anything material. That's why, according to this philosophy, we have to understand what is real and what is not real, what is illusion and what is reality. And not be interested in the illusion. So important. I mean, and we need help. We all need to encourage each other in this way. Okay, let's go on with the next verse. Chaita, would you like to read?
Yes, Mataji. Morning, everyone. Report continued. The holy name has to be chanted to please the Supreme Lord, and not for any sense gratification or professional purpose. If this pure mentality is there, then even though a person is born of a low family, such as a dog eater's, he is so glorious that not only has he purified himself, but he is quite competent to deliver others. He is competent to speak on the importance of the transcendental name, just as Thakur Haridas did. He was apparently born in a family of Mohammedans, but because he was chanting the holy name of the Supreme Lord offenselessly, Lord Chaitanya empowered him to become the authority or acharya of spreading the name. It did not matter that he was born in a family which was not following the Vedic rules and regulations. The word Juhuvu means that the chanters of the holy name have already performed all kinds of sacrifices. Sasnuhu means that they have already traveled to all the holy places of pilgrimage and taken part in purificatory activities at those places. They are called Aryaha, because they have already finished all these requirements, and therefore they must be among the Aryans, or those who have qualified themselves to become Aryans. Aryan refers to those who are civilized, whose manners are regulated according to the Vedic rituals. Any devotee who is chanting the holy name of the Lord is the best kind of Aryan. The very word grananti, which is used in this verse, means to be already established in the perfectional stage of ritualistic performances. If one is seated on the bench of a high court and is giving judgment on cases, it means that he has already passed all legal exams and is better than those who are engaged in the study of law or those expecting to study law in the future. In a similar way, persons who are chanting the holy name are transcendental to those who are factually performing the Vedic rituals and those who expect to be qualified, or in other words, those who are born in families of Brahmanas, but have not yet undergone the reformatory processes, and who therefore expect to study the Vedic rituals and perform the sacrifices in the future.
Okay, so reading this, there is a tendency to come a little puffed up and think that, oh, here I am, this is it, thank God for me, the world is saved. So what's the mentality that one should develop to, even though we are greatly fortunate, there is a certain mentality that one should develop as a devotee. What is that?
The way to maintain is to realize that everything we're doing, whether it's chanting or other kinds of service, is all about pleasing the Supreme Lord, not about pleasing ourselves.
Right.
And sometimes that's hard because we're so conditioned to look for sense gratification in whatever we do.
Right.
But we have this obligation to keep our consciousness clear and keep the goal in front of us, because it's so easy to drive off the road.
Yeah, it is. That's it. And also, Prabhupada one time, often he's told us, don't forget where you came from. Don't forget where you came from. I mean, you know, I'm assuming, unfortunately, that except for the second generation, perhaps most of us have eaten meat in this lifetime. You know, that's not a good history. So, you know, we have a lot. We can, you know, once you start seeing reality, we can become very humble. So don't forget where we come from. And also, being a devotee is he's just a devotee. There's no just in front of that. This is a very, you know, we're trying to become devotee. We're trying to become devotee. We should never think, like Radharani, we heard Prabhupada just say, Radharani, who is the greatest devotee, she is always thinking, oh, this person can serve Krishna better than I can. You know, it's a very humble state of consciousness to be a devotee. So there's certain guidelines that we can incorporate in our own devotional service to keep us straight on the path and not drive off the road, as you said.
Yeah, I'm thinking of this wonderful book, Harinam Chintamani by Bhaktivinoda Thakur. And in there are listed the stringent conditions for purely chanting. And this is making me realize that even though, yes, we've come a long way, we shouldn't rest on our laurels.
Yeah.
We need to keep developing so that we can get rid of this namabas and so on, where it's just shadow chanting. It takes a real effort to get to that
Purity of heart.
We can't take it for granted. We got to keep working at it and cultivating. And we can't say, well, I've arrived. No. The more we spend time with devotees, the more we realize, man, I've got a ways to go.
Well, that's a good humble attitude, right? That's what we want, humble attitude.
Just like a faceted gem shines and looks different from different points of view. Similarly, another point in this topic is that others around us who are chanting, we should realize their exalted position and not find so much fault. And sometimes we compare ourselves and try to juxtaposition ourselves within the whole place. everyone who's doing this process is in the shower. They're all wonderful and are on their path. Some are exhibiting that more than others, but at least we can have an attitude that we understand they're in the human form of life. They're performing the Yuga Dharma, and therefore they need to be respected.
Thanks for that reminder.
Hare Krishna. Okay, let's just go on now. Kate is with us. Kate, would you like to read, my darling?
I'll try. Can you hear me though?
Yes, perfectly.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'll try. Maybe have bad reception, but
Not
Srimad
that perfectly,
Bhagavatam.
but something. Okay, keep
Okay.
read.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:33:8. I believe, my Lord, that you are Lord Vishnu himself under the name of Kapila, and you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Supreme Brahman. The saints and sages, being freed from all the disturbances of the senses and mind, meditate upon you. For your mercy only can become free from, for by your mercy only can one become free from the clutches of the three modes of material nature. At the time of dissolution, all the Vedas are sustained in you only. Purport. Devahuti, the mother of Kapila, instead of prolonging her prayers, summarized that Lord Kapila was none other than Vishnu, and that since she was a woman, it was not possible for her to worship him properly simply by prayer. It was her intention that the Lord be satisfied. The word pratyak is significant. In yogic practice, the 8 divisions are yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dhyana, dharana, and samadhi. Pratyahara means to wind up the activities of the senses. The level of realization of the Supreme Lord evidenced by Devahuti is possible when one is able to withdraw the senses from the material activities. When one is engaged in devotional service, there is no scope for his senses to be engaged otherwise. In such full Krishna consciousness, one can understand the Supreme Lord as he is.
This is really important, this last line, because we find that we are engaged in so many activities that could appear to be material. So what is the thing that makes it spiritual? Okay.
What is the thing that makes it spiritual?
Yeah, what is the thing that makes it spiritual in full Krishna consciousness? Like you're taking care of your son and all so many different things. We're all engaged in cleaning the house and, cooking, and these appear to be material things. How do we justify that it's, that it's spiritual?
Through yajna, through our consciousness, right? Through
consciousness.
Offering everything as sacrifice.
Good. Perfect. That's it. Because it's the same activities. Prabhupada used to say that we have a house and the neighbors next door have a house. In this house, we're worshiping Krishna, we're chanting, we're offering our food, we're doing arti, we're reading the Bhagavatam. In this house, they're not doing any of those activities. But they're eating, we're eating. They're going to work, we're going to work, we're doing our devotional service. We're doing the same things on one level, but they're not doing it for Krishna. And we're doing it for Krishna. Not only do it, but think that I'm doing it for Krishna. Understand that this activity, I'm doing this to please the Lord. I think several of us have said this during this conversation. We act to please Krishna. And that's the devotional service.
And I think it's important, like you said, just to keep that simple thought. Sometimes our activities are not so, are seemingly mundane, but just to keep that thought in the forefront of our consciousness. And the only way to do that is just to constantly be engaging, to be hearing, to be chanting. So that when you're doing those mundane things, then you can remember.
Yeah, you can remember washing the clothes, washing the dishes. Sometimes I call it the dreaded task. But do it for Krishna, it becomes glorious, All of these things that we're engaged in, it's such a far out process. We can spiritualize the most unusual things, actually. Okay, good.
A point, that was a nice conversation, nice topic. And from the sensual point of view, an objective viewer, onlooker, just like you said, a person will look at both houses and see these people are eating, those people are eating, those people are sleeping, those people are sleeping. So the science of distinguishing reality from illusion gets down into the subtle world. What are you thinking while you're doing those activities? Where is your consciousness while you're performing those activities? That in itself makes all the difference.
Wonderful. And see how this whole thing is getting back to what is Sankhya philosophy. And what we're discussing here, that's actually Sankhya philosophy. Wonderful. Thank you. Okay, let's start again with Manvantara reading the next verse. Can we do that?
Text 9 and 10. Thus the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapila, satisfied by the words of his mother, towards whom he was very affectionate, replied with gravity. The Personality of Godhead said, "My dear mother, the path of self-realization, which I have already instructed to you, is very easy. You can execute the system without difficulty, and by following it, you shall very soon be liberated, even within your present body." Purport. Devotional service is so perfect that simply by following the rules and regulations and executing them under the direction of the spiritual master, one is liberated, as it is said herein, from the clutches of Maya, even in this body. In other yogic processes or in empiric philosophical speculation, one is never certain whether or not he is at the perfectional stage. But in the discharge of devotional service, if one has unflinching faith in the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master and follows the rules and regulations, he is sure to be liberated, even within this present body. Jivan Mukti means that even though one is in the material body, there are still some material necessities, since the body is material. Because one is fully situated in the service of the Lord, he should be understood to be liberated. Liberation entails being situated in one's own position. That is the definition in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Bhuktir surupena vayashasti. The Sarupa, or actual identity of the living entity, is described by Lord Chaitanya. Jivera Sarupa Haya Krishnera Anitya Das. The real identity of the living entity is that he is eternally a servitor of the Supreme Lord. If someone is 100% engaged in the service of the Lord, he is to be understood as liberated. One must understand whether or not he is liberated by his activities in devotional service, not by other symptoms.
Wow, how wonderful. Okay, so faith. Faith is, it seems as though faith means you can, liberation. If you have faith, you can become liberated. And liberation is the condition of the soul. That's the natural condition of the soul, liberation. Why don't you talk a little bit about those two things, that if this liberation is based on our faith, and also that this liberation is the natural condition of the soul.
Right. I really don't have much more to add, to be honest. It's
We'll
all
talk about faith. What about faith? Faith. Everyone has a direct relationship with faith.
Mhm.
You know, and our liberation is based on faith. Faith in what?
Faith in the words of the spiritual master,
Okay.
the directions of the spiritual master, who has faith in his spiritual master, and ultimately in Krishna.
There are three things: Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu, and that's the foundation of our faith. Guru, Shastra, and Sadhu. So these are sources for our own knowledge and how we can establish faith. Okay. Do you have anything else to add about liberation? About your, what do you think about liberation, Manvantara? What just real quick? What do you think?
It's the word liberation is, in my opinion, seems to be defined a little differently each time. It's like a moving progressive target or something. But what is said here in the purport is that all your activities in Krishna consciousness will, give you liberation.
Right.
And in other verses, it says, liberation is not a big deal,
Right.
So it's like a
Okay.
moving.
I personally, I kind of like the thought of liberation. I love liberation. I actually want to be liberated. But in devotional service, the love that one develops for Krishna, the natural love that the soul has for Krishna, then it said liberation is waiting at your doorstep. You don't think about being liberated because you've already transcended the material world when you're engaged in full-time service to Krishna.
Right.
And that doesn't matter what you're doing to be fully engaged in Krishna's service. That's another point that we're really finding very much repeated here. Thank you
very much.
Yeah.
Another point in this verse that I really liked when I read it, Chatamay also. He says, Supreme Personality of God, it said, my dear mother, the path of self-realization, which I've already instructed to you, is very easy.
Yay.
You can execute this system without difficulty. And by following it, you shall very soon be liberated, even in your present body. That's a summarization of the Lord explaining to his devotee. He told Arjuna the same thing. Doesn't matter if you fight and win or fight and lose. By fighting for me, you're perfect.
We'll take that.
I appreciate Manvantar's comment that liberation, as you read, seems to be a moving target and it's hard to define. But I think what helps me to understand it is that you can be liberated, as you were saying, even in your present body. It's not another place that you go to. Initially, I thought liberation is this zone that you go to and has nothing to do with here and now. But yes, we stay here and now and we are liberated just by taking this on. Haribol.
Yeah, by taking this on. That's the very important words at the end there. We're not going to be liberated unless we take this on. And what do we take on? Tisha, what do we take on? Come on, girl.
We take on service to Krishna and understanding
the Yuga Dharma. The Yuga Dharma, we take on the Yuga Dharma, recommended by the Lord himself. The easiest process.
Chanting Hare Krishna.
Chanting Hare Krishna. I wrote a poem in the book that I wrote, Salvation for Dummies. And that's the name of the poem. And because, I don't know, it just came to me because it was all this different things with dummies and this and that. But this holy name, this chanting of the holy name is salvation for dummies, no doubt about it. Okay, let's go on. We want to finish everything. Sham, you want to read? Thank you, Chaitamayi, Tisha. Sham, why don't you read? You might have to, I think I'm going to have you read two because we're coming near the end here.
Yeah. I was just seeing, Mother Samapriya, how your service, being absorbed in this literature and writing poems is so absorbing. In other words, it's so tailored for you to be absorbed in. It's a very nice example. Thank you.
Oh, Hare Krishna. Prabhupada's mercy, everything.
Srimad Bhagavatam 3:33:11. My dear mother, those who are actually transcendentalists certainly follow my instructions as I have given them to you. You may rest assured that if you traverse this path of self-realization perfectly, surely you shall be freed from fearful material contamination and shall ultimately reach me. Mother, persons who are not conversant with this method of devotional service certainly cannot get out of the cycle of birth and death. Purport: material existence is full of anxiety, and therefore it is fearful. One who gets out of this material existence automatically becomes free from all anxieties and fear. One who follows the path of devotional service enunciated by Lord Kapila is very easily liberated.
Okay. So what do you have to say about this? Actually, I have a question for you.
Mhm.
What do you want in life? What do you want in life?
It's a great question. And in regards to liberation, I'm always thinking like that I'll have to come back. I'm always trying to prepare myself for the next life. Maybe it's just my conditioning. I've failed a lot of exams at school and stuff like that. But what I'm saying is that well, I don't know that I do it, but I asked someone senior, like when we come across hardships in devotional service, they can knock us down. And so like we can be liberated. Oh, there's a verse that we read just some weeks ago about standing in one's own glory. So being liberated to me means standing in one's own glory, which means I just may not get liberated, but I've done the best I can and served to my best ability. That's what it means. I've gone away from the question. What was your original question? Sorry, Mother Son.
Oh my God, you expect me to remember that? No. What do you want in this life? What do you want? What do we want in this life? What do we want in this life? What do you want, Sham? What do you want?
I think well, to just on the honest platform, just to be not fearful would be a great start. That's what this verse talks about, anxiety and fear.
Oh, that's very interesting. That's very interesting. And how do you get fearless?
Well, it extends to liberation in this verse, but go ahead. Sorry.
When you can depend on someone who's worthy and can take care of you, right? So this whole thing is coming around to love Krishna. That I think, did we hear something about Pati? Did you say something about it this morning, or did I hear it on the class? There's so many different things coming in, but the whole point is to love Krishna, to develop our relationship with Krishna. That's what we want. We want the truth, for goodness sake. We want the truth. Who's my eternal lover? I have all this love. Where am I going to put it? Here, there, with what? We want the truth, and we want to be in love. So this is the way. This is the process. Okay. Okay. Let's go on because we're running out. But do this one too, Sean.
Okay. Verse 12. Sri Maitreya said, "The Supreme Personality of Godhead Kapila, after instructing his beloved mother, took permission from her and left his home, his mission having been fulfilled." The mission of the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the form of Kapila was to distribute the transcendental knowledge of Sankhya philosophy, which is full of devotional service. Having imparted that knowledge to his mother and through his mother to the world, Kapila Dev had no more need to stay at home, so he took permission from his mother and left. Apparently, he left home for spiritual realization, although he had nothing to realize spiritually because he himself is the person to be spiritually realized. Therefore, this is an example set by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, while acting like an ordinary human being, so that others might learn from him.
Oh boy, that's something. What do you think about that? What example did he set?
I mean, it's pretty humble. He's the person of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but he just acts like a common person, behaves like a common person on the outside. I think that's very humbling.
It's humbling. And what example did he set about?
That he was just gonna, so he was just gonna, his duty was done, so he was asked permission from his mother to leave. And I mean, who does that in the Western world? I'm done now, can I leave? I mean, I've just done a phenomenal job for the world, may I leave? Well, you know.
that's a far out way to look at it. But what is Devahuti feeling? You know, what's he going to say no to her son who she knows he's the Supreme Personality of Godhead? And this is like a tearful moment. And then Prabhupada says, in the next purport, he says, this attachment that Devahuti has for her son, who is the Supreme Lord, incidentally, this is good. But no other son is worthy of this attachment. Now that's the heavy part, because we're in love with everything material. We're in love with everything, but we have to be that kind of love. We have to give to Krishna.
Well, I wasn't seeing so much from Mother Devahuti's side, probably because of my conditioning in this body, but thank you so much for showing that.
Anyway, so much to see in these verses. All right. Let's go on. Thank you, Sham. Sorry if I put you on the spot. I seem to do that a lot. I'm sorry. Okay, next person. Tisha. Tisha, my darling, would you like to read?
Hare Krishna, yes. Verse 13. Sri Maitreya continued, as instructed by her son, Devahuti also began to practice bhakti yoga in that very ashram. She practiced samadhi in the house of Kardama Muni, which was so beautifully decorated with flowers that it was considered the flower crown of the river Saraswati. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Devahuti did not leave her house because it is never recommended for a woman to leave her home. She is dependent. The very example of Devahuti was that when she was not married, she was under the care of her father, Swayambhuva Manu, and then Swayambhuva Manu gave her to Kardama Muni in a charity. She was under the care of her husband in her youth, and then her son, Kapila Muni, was born. As soon as her son grew up, her husband left home, and similarly, the son, after discharging his duty towards his mother, also left. She could also have left home, but she did not. Rather, she remained at home and began to practice bhakti yoga as it was instructed by her great son, Kapila Muni. And because of her practice of bhakti yoga, the entire home became just like a flower crown on the river Saraswati.
Okay, well, that's beautiful. Okay, Tisha, what do you think about that?
I was just pondering this for the longest time because Devahuti is dependent, but here she is seemingly left alone. You know, her husband left, her son left, and now seemingly there is no one that she's depending on. Do you know what I mean? If she's dependent, there's no one to depend on.
Okay, so seemingly, that's your saving grace, that word seemingly, because who is the only person worthy of us depending on? And how many times does he put us in position that we understand we can only depend on him?
Yeah.
Right, especially in this day and age, in an ideal world in the Vedic culture, that verse that we just read, where the father takes care and then the husband takes care and then the grown son takes care, more than happening is not happening in this Kali Yuga.
From
right?
one point of view, it can be seen that Devahuti was given all she required. She had everything she needed. She had received the instructions. She had the home that Kardama Muni supplied for her. She had servants and different people that were there. But basically, she had the information. She had the practice. So I don't believe that either Kardama Muni or Kapila Muni would have left her if it was an unsafe or unsavory condition for her. She was completely taken care of because those instructions were so fully, and he could see that she imbibed them, she understood them. Now she practiced them, and towards the end of the chapter, today and tomorrow when I post it, the very end of the chapter, we'll see how she actually attains perfection and goes back home, back to Godhead by practicing what he taught her.
And her house became a shelter for her because she was practicing bhakti yoga. If you transfer all of that from Devahuti to the reality of, or to the way life is now in this world today, we can, how do we get faith? We can get faith. We can have these same instructions that Devahuti received and take shelter of them and really have faith that this is reality, and taking shelter of any other situation is not reality. Nanda? Nandaji?
Yeah, no, I'm unmuting. It takes a second.
I'm sorry, Donna.
So here's my question. Can I ask a question now? Or do you want me to wait to the end?
Sure.
Okay, so Devahuti's position, it's always from what I remember reading in Prabhupada's purports in this section and on the story, she's always treated as if she's not already liberated, and she became liberated because she heard and followed and et cetera, et cetera. But isn't her position actually, she's already perfect? But I know that's not the point. I know that she's doing all her things for teaching us proper behavior. But sometimes it always seems strange to me, even sometimes like, and she perfected herself and went back to Godhead. Well, how would she have been the mother of Kapila Dev if she wasn't already?
Good question. Okay. I just want to really quickly respond to this, that when the Supreme Lord, who also sometimes becomes bewildered, apparently, engages in a pastime, he gets really into it. He cries to see his father in a certain way, to see his devotees suffer, and so certainly she's liberated. She's the mother of Krishna. She's the mother of God. That's like that's if that's not liberated, there's no liberated. But she's in the mood, and she's being covered by Yoga Maya, not Mahamaya. That would be my answer. What do you think, Pati?
Yes. In one sense, we can kind of look at that from a bird's eye point of view. Another thought that I had as Nanda was asking the question was that even liberated souls, because spirit is unlimited, there's no culmination, there's no limit, there's no ceiling to the top of love. So by her spending time with Kapila Dev, listening to his instructions, and then once he left, applying those instructions, her depth of love simply increased to the point where, and simultaneously, like you said, Nanda, she's showing by example, but it's not just like an actor or an actress. She's actually practicing something, and in a liberated state while doing it is still advancing. We say liberated, and it's kind of like, in the material world, we have linear experience. You cross the finish line, you complete the task, you reach perfection, as if it's something that's going to like crossing the line and the ribbon breaks and they timed it, and that's how long it took you. But in the spiritual world, it's unlimited. There is no end. Perfection is unlimited. There's no place where it stops.
Deeper and deeper levels of love of God.
Yes, and we see that. Even and we read previously, even Krishna wants to taste that. He sucks his toe. He takes the form of the mood of Srimati Radharani to experience that. What is it in me? One of his three desires. What is it in me that people experience when they love me? He wants to see from that point of view. That's why he took the form of Lord Chaitanya, because there's a nice sentence in the foreword to Brahma Samhita that Samapriya and I often we joke about it. It says, aspersions of culmination are not in the spiritual world. What's an aspersion of culmination? An aspersion is an attack on something. It's something that's not good. It's an aspersion. Of culmination. Culmination means an ending, a fulfillment. Culmination, aspersions of culmination are experiences in the limited world. Because
there are none in the spiritual world. Nothing
there's no angularity. That's 180 degrees. It's just unlimited in all directions. So Devahuti's experience of practicing what Kapila Dev taught automatically helped her flow on the current to a much deeper experience, that even though she's liberated.
Oh, Nanda has the smiling face there. She agrees. Nanda, do you want to read?
Yes, certainly.
Okay, darling.
33rd chapter, text 14 through 18. She began to bathe 3 times daily, and thus her curling black hair gradually became gray. Due to austerity, her body gradually became thin, and she wore old garments. The home and household paraphernalia of Kardama, who was one of the Prajapatis, was developed in such a way by dint of his mystic powers of austerity and yoga that his opulence was sometimes envied by those who travel in outer space in airplanes. The opulence of the household of Kardama Muni is described herein. The bed sheets and mattresses were all as white as the foam of milk. The chairs and benches were made of ivory and were covered by cloths of lace with golden filigree. And the couches were made of gold and had very soft pillows. The walls of the house were made of first-class marble, decorated with valuable jewels. There was no need of light, for the household was illuminated by the rays of these jewels. The female members of the household were all amply decorated with jewelry. The compound of the main household was surrounded by beautiful gardens with sweet, fragrant flowers and many trees, which produced fresh fruit and were tall and beautiful. The attraction of such gardens was that singing birds would sit on the trees, and their chanting voices, as well as the humming sound of the bees, made the whole atmosphere as pleasing as possible.
So this is where Devahuti was left.
Right. So obviously she wasn't in, like it was previously stated, she wasn't left by herself. She was amply taken care of by what he had provided earlier, physically and spiritually with his instructions.
Yeah, we were also talking about how there must have been servants.
Oh yeah.
And gardeners, and so that palace was kind of like a community. So she had some interrelationships with people, and so that was endearing as well and encouraging.
Yes.
What else you got, Nanda, on this one?
That's all for now.
Okie dokie, thank you.
All right, Krishna.
Okay, we're going to go on now. We only have 2 more slides. And Madhurya Leela. Madhurya, would you like to read this? Let's see if she's Madhurya ji. Don't know. I think she might have walked out.
Maybe someone else.
But yeah. Chita, you want to read?
There's the unmute button. Thank you. Okay. When Devahuti, 1920, when Devahuti would enter that lovely garden to take her bath in the pond filled with lotus flowers, the associates of the denizens of heaven, the Gandharvas, would sing about Kardama's glorious household life. Her great husband, Kardama, gave her all protection at all times. Although her position was unique from all points of view, saintly Devahuti, in spite of all her possessions, which were envied even by the ladies of the heavenly planets, gave up all such comforts. She was only sorry that her great son was separated from her. Devahuti's husband had already left home and accepted the renounced order of life. And then her only son, Kapila, left home. Although she knew all the truths of life and death, and although her heart was cleansed of all dirt, she was very aggrieved at the loss of her son, just as a cow is affected when her calf dies. Purport. A woman whose husband is away from home or has taken the renounced order of life should not be very sorry, because she still has the presence of her husband's representative, her son. It is said in the Vedic literatures, Atmaiva Putro Jayate. The husband's body is represented by the son. Strictly speaking, a woman is never widowed if she has a grown son. Devahuti was not very much affected while Kapila Muni was there, but upon his departure, she was very afflicted. She grieved not only because of her worldly relationship with Kardama Muni, but because of her sincere love for the personality of Godhead.
Wow. So is that love and separation?
Absolutely. And it's real V Pralamba, because us materialists, we're sad when we can't live with our kids anymore and we miss them terribly. But it doesn't have to be like that. If we simply attach ourselves to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, if we read these amazing books like Bhagavatam, he's right there with us. And we can have that beautiful attachment, the one and only attachment that really works for us.
It seems to me it's a process. You can't get it overnight. You have to do the work. You got to do the work, man. You got to do the work. And then you
practicing all along. So by the time our kids do leave, we've got an advantage.
That's good. That's a good point. Tisha? Thank you, Chaita.
This was the part, I guess the way I read it, I had stopped, or maybe the class stopped at the part where Devahuti was left alone. And then in the next class it picked up, and Prabhupada explains that there were Gandharvas and denizens, and she was cared for by everything that Kardama Muni did for her. And she had a beautiful house and all the flowers, and it just describes this amazing place that she was living. But still, she was afflicted because she was, her Kardama Muni was gone, and now her son Kapila was gone. And so even though she was in this most beautiful place where she could have enjoyed all of the things around her, she was afflicted because she was only thinking about the loss that her son Kapila now is gone from her. And so now it doesn't matter, in everything material around you could be beautiful, but that's not what was important to her. Her love for her son, her loss of that relationship. And so to me, that was just the culmination of this whole thing. She was surrounded by beauty, but all she could think about was Kapila.
Okay. Now let me just go into that for a moment. This love and separation from Krishna is actually the goal that we want. And this was not an ordinary son. We could say that she lost her son, and certainly a materialist. Anyone who loses a child, that's the greatest loss. But Devahuti was lamenting due to separation, as Chaita said, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And in him, all relationships find their ultimate point, right? They find their ultimate point. So she, like Mother Yasoda, when Krishna left, Mother Yasoda, I was just reading a book on how the residents of Vrindavan in Gopala Champu by Jiva Goswami, the residents of Vrindavan, their love was astounding, and they were all no one was eating, everyone was crying. It was just feelings of separation. This is what Lord Chaitanya says. When will my heart be filled with love? When I'm chanting your holy name, feeling your separation. I'm feeling 12 years or more. This is the goal of chanting Hare Krishna, is to feel this divine separation from Krishna. So in Devahuti's case, and I don't know if we read it or we will read it, Prabhupada says in the purport, this is not an ordinary son. Her attachment is glorious in this case. Her attachment is glorious. And how did she do that? By engaging in devotional service. She's worshiping, just like Mother Sachi. Mother Sachi is worshiping Lord Chaitanya. She can't live without him, but he's coming and taking prasad in her house every day. Lord Chaitanya in his sporty form, Nanda's got something to add. Nandaji.
Well, just to add it, just to bring it to even a higher level, because she was feeling separation from Kapila. What was she getting? She was thinking of him always, and therefore she was always associating with him on that level.
Right.
There's a pastime quote, whatever, of Srimati Radharani, and it explains that when she is separated from Krishna, she sees Krishna everywhere. She sees him everywhere, and when she's with him, she just sees one Krishna. So therefore, it takes. I have no understanding of this level, but I've heard it enough times that at least I can get beyond the fact that it's not the sadness of separation that we feel here in the material world. Oh, I'm separated from this, I'm my lover, or my husband, or my kids, whatever. Yeah, okay. But it's beyond that. It's actually, you ready? It's actually ecstatic, because you're thinking of the very, like you're just saying, Sama, the very goal of our lives is to remember Krishna. So thinking of him like that, it's, you ready? It's better.
Better. It's the best. How wonderful. Cheta.
Oh, just wanted to thank Nanda. That was brilliant. Thank you so much.
Good. Yeah, thank you, Nandaji. So we can't be afraid of this love of separation, because that's what we're going toward. Go on. Yes, darling.
Really a hard concept to get in the beginning, and we're all in the beginning. That
Right.
love and separation is ecstatic. It's a, what do you call it, oxymoron or whatever those.
An oxymoron. You can't have one without the other. You really can't. You can't have union, which is samboga, without vipralamba, which is separation. You need the separation. I mean, what Krishna puts the residents of Vrindavan through, the gopis, it is like you never even can conceive of that amount of neglect of their own selves because of their love for Krishna. But they are the greatest lovers of Krishna, because when they unite, that's the only way that they can come to that point of union that is beyond anything conceivable, by experiencing this deep bob of separation. Phew. Okay, let us end this. How about, Arundhati, would you like to read? Are you there?
Yeah,
Wanna
sure.
finish? Good. Finish up for us here.
SP 33322. O Vidura, thus always meditating upon her son, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Kapil Dev, she very soon became unattached to her nicely decorated home. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here is a practical example of how one can elevate oneself in spiritual advancement by Krishna consciousness. Kapil Dev is Krishna, and he appeared as the son of Devahuti. After Kapil Dev left home, Devahuti was absorbed in thought of him, and thus she was always Krishna conscious. Her constant situation in Krishna consciousness enabled her to be detached from earth and home. Unless we are able to transfer our attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no possibility of becoming freed from material attachment. The devotees adopt the devotional process, hearing about the Supreme Lord's pastimes and glorifying his activities, and thereby always remembering his beautiful eternal form. By rendering service, becoming his friend or his servant, and offering him everything that one possesses, one is able to enter into the kingdom of God. As it is said in Bhagavad Gita, Tato Mam Tatvato Gyatva. After discharging pure devotional service, one can understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In fact, and thus one becomes eligible to enter into his association in one of the spiritual planets.
Well, do me one favor. Read that in the paragraph above, starting with unless we are able.
Unless we are able to transfer our attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no possibility of becoming freed from material attachment.
There it is. Very good. What do you have to say about this, Arundhati, as far as your realization goes?
Nothing. I mean, the conversation that was going on earlier was just mind-boggling. It's beautiful. So beautiful.
Yeah, we can achieve this. Even us, we can achieve this. But put it back to that. That's a good note to leave on. That one, unless. Put it back. Read that one more time, Arundhati.
Unless we are able to transfer our attachment to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there is no possibility of becoming freed from material attachment.
Okay, that for me pretty much sums the whole thing up right there.
Yeah.
Anything else from anyone at this point? Patti, you want to add something to that?
No, I think it's very clear. I think Tisha also was pointing out that although she was in a heavenly abode, it didn't distract her. Material things just don't have that taste. Once someone's in love with Krishna, this material world and everything in it, even a beautiful abode that was a mystic palace, became unattractive. She became unattached to her nicely decorated home.
Hare Krishna. Very good. Simple living and high thinking.
Mm.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank you,
and
everyone.
anyone has and before we end, everyone is cool? Everybody, now we have more ammunition to go back to Godhead. We're not going to waste our time in this place, in a world of illusion.
Jai Lord Kapila, Jai Devahuti.
Jai,
Jai.
Vanchakalpadtarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhubhyam, Titiram Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha.
Vaishnavas and
Thank
Vaishnavis
you.
ki jai.
Thank you
Hare
all so
Krishna.
much. Hare Krishna.
Go.
Hare Rama.